Welcome back to the Retro Game Redux podcast. It's episode 22. I am your co-host, Scuba, aka Steve Krecklow. I'm here with John Kirby, aka the Kirblet. How you doing tonight, Kirb?
I'm doing really great. It's been a pretty battle. You had a stream today there, Scoops. It went well. Enjoyed that. Always a good time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to be able to stream today. I'm so busy with this and that, getting ready to move. I got a bunch of projects going on. But yeah, I wanted to take time to take a couple hours of the day to be bad at an old NES game. So I started up with Shatterhand today. That's a great game.
That actually looks fun. I actually might try it myself. Old school beat 'em ups are sometimes not the best, but that one looks like a really good hidden gem there. So
I disagree. They are always the best. Old school beat 'em ups. What's not to love?
Yeah, it's true.
It's basically Batman. It's basically.
Yeah, it did have some Batman vibes going on there too, especially with the boss that you were fighting today too.
I like the power up combos that you can do with that.
That was a cool mechanic. I did enjoy that. You know, different combos of the different collectors. You got to collect like one or two and switch, I guess, cards or whatnot, and then different combinations give you different results. I thought that was a really cool mechanic.
Me too. Yeah, I've been. I'll tell you. I started talking about it on the last episode. I've been working on my retro game drum sort of library.
Yes. Do we have an update on that?
Well, NES, I basically have all my favorite NES percussion sounds kind of
nice
curated. I basically opened up Fami Studio. I learned how to use Fami Studio. I learned what all the different waveforms do, all the different sort of duty cycles, like volume envelopes, just different little tips and tricks you can, like little things you can do with like these tiny little waveforms,
right,
to make them sound awesome.
Are we witnessing the next Tim Follins on our hands here?
Man, I've been on such a deep dive with his music, and it's just sort of like I almost want to just play every game he's ever made just for the music and see if I can just get through because some of the games are just like nothing. Anticipation for one.
Right. So you know how back in a couple episodes ago we were talking about how Koji Kondo was in the DICE Awards Hall of Fame. I would argue that Tim Follins probably deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame just for his music alone and the contributions he's made to video game music.
For sure. It's never the celebrities that that really in video games, it's like the celebrities are Koji Kondo as far as music,
right? And people like
who else?
Uematsu and
Uematsu, I guess, is a close second. But yeah, it's like David Wise and Tim Follin and Yuzo Koshiro, I guess, would be number 3 in that celebrity list. It's like it's rare that the engineers like the get the credit they deserve, for building the roads that we all drive on now as people who play, people enjoy video games, people who make video game music. So yeah, I mean, the top of my list is David Wise, just for what he was able to do with so little and never really got the credit for it. Like he exited the game industry unceremoniously after saying it was way too much trouble for what it was worth, and he never really made any money on it, right?
Oh man, that's a shame. Like hopefully people like Grant Kirkhope kind of took what he did and kind of built upon that. Him and like people like Robin Bean, who Robin Bean's most famous for like the Killer Instinct soundtrack and among the other members of the team. But yeah, like definitely there's people out there who will definitely take up the mantle from the previous generation and run with it.
It's sort of like the industry kind of like this calling. I'm a composer, not for video games mostly, but it sort of chooses you. It's like it's a very specific set of skills that you have to have all of them to sort of be good. And not one of those skills is usually like hubris or like ego.
Right.
We're not really good at marketing ourselves most of the time, and that's part of why we're good at doing the job, because we like to lay in the shadows and do the thing and be the straw that serves the drink. I guess nobody ever thought that this was important music until it was. Until it was. And so I've been learning so much about things like I've started doing Genesis drums now, which is a whole other animal.
I can imagine, yeah.
I could talk for a while about that, and let me talk about that for a sec.
Go for it.
So the thing about the Genesis is it uses this thing called FM synthesis, which is Do you know what FM synthesis? If you don't know what FM synthesis is, it's basically like it's such a weird way of making tones, because it's all made with like sine waves, which are the purest sound. It's just like it's one frequency. Does
it stand for like frequency modulation? I think is that what it stands for?
Yeah.
Or am I think okay.
Yeah. So you're taking one pure frequency and you are modulating it, like basically like changing its pitch by using another frequency and multiplying them together.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Was the NES chip able to do that, or is that something that was actually just unique to Genesis now?
The original NES chip did not have that. It had three waveforms. Well, it had a square wave, which is just square wave means just the sound is on or off.
Yeah,
and there's no like sort of gradual change between the on and it sounds like
just
very
a flat
bright.
tone.
Very bright, very kind of full, but you can get different sound versions of that sound by varying. Like, okay, we're going to be on 10% of the time, and then we're going to be off 90% of the time.
Oh,
and then it had a triangle wave, which wasn't actually like a triangle. If you think about a triangle, basically it's a diagonal line going one way, and then another diagonal line going down, and that's what is meant by that. But because it's digital, it's early digital, it didn't really have the resolution to do that. So it's basically like a 7-step like staircase.
Yeah.
And that's why the NES bass stuff sounds so kind of like buzzy, because it's just a very inferior waveform that we've all come to know and love.
I mean, that's part of that creative, like, how do you get the most out of your sound chips? And, you had to work with it a little bit just to get the sound you wanted. You had to experiment.
Yeah, so I basically took all of those pure waveforms and made drum sounds that sound like my childhood. And it was really
awesome.
cool to figure out how to do that. I learned so much that I will, never forget. And I will continue to use, not just in video game music generation. But there's also samples. So a lot of these drums are sampled from old like 80s drum machines, like the stuff that just was available at the time. So
like built into like electronic pianos and stuff that were programmable. Is that
yeah,
kind of
sometimes, but mostly just like you can go buy a dedicated drum machine from the music shop.
Okay.
And then it's got like a kick drum sound and a snare drum sound. And basically sampling is you're just playing that onto a digital recorder and then converting that into data that you can put on the game. But the problem with that with the NES is there was no memory. Like most of these games are like, let's say 80 kilobytes or less. The original Mario game, I think, was maybe 40 kilobytes.
Oh, wow.
That's nothing. That's not even one web page.
Wow.
So
like when that memory of that, say several measures or whatnot, ran out, you had to load a whole new thing, basically.
No,
I guess maybe
that
I'm
was
not
all
quite
the
understanding.
memory. That was
Oh,
all the
shit.
memory of the game. The console had like 64 kilobytes of memory in RAM or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And so you had to fit the whole game in that. And samples are very costly as far as space, and
Yeah.
memory is expensive. They want to keep the game prices low. So if you look at like Mega Man, for example,
Mhm.
they made tons of those games. They had
Mhm.
no samples in the game.
Oh, wow,
It's
okay.
just all the drums you hear it's just white noise. Different qualities of white noise.
Wow.
Like think TV not set to a channel or radio
Yeah,
not set
yeah.
to a channel. Just
Mhm.
psh, and
Oh,
there's
wow.
16 different pitches of noise that it could make. So like there's like really like low kind of kind of stuff that you could use to make a really primitive sounding kick drum, all the way up to like a mid one, could be a snare drum, and then the
Mhm.
highest one would be like a cymbal or a hi-hat or a shaker,
Wow.
and that's your drums. Most games just use that. Mario 1, for example. Mario
Mhm.
3 used some samples. It was sort of, it was a big game. They had
Mhm.
developed some extra tech. The games have gotten bigger.
Yeah,
So it
just
had
a
like that
little extra memory.
timbale,
Yeah.
woodblock sort of stuff. All this to say, FM, the expansion stuff that the Japanese market got had some
Mhm.
primitive FM synthesis. And it didn't sound very good, but it had it.
Okay. I think the Genesis had different versions of the sound chips. Like one was like a Motorola chip, and another one was like a Yamaha chip. Is that true?
Sort of, sort of.
Okay.
The original Genesis chip. I think it's the. Hold on, let me just see here. I
Mhm.
need to look this up. Um, uh, it's the Yamaha 2612. Yeah, YM
Okay.
2612. So
All
that
right.
was like a separate chip in the early Genesis. So it could do 6 channels of FM
Mhm.
and then 4 channels of like non-FM, like just sort of like master system style, kind of like
Okay.
primitive waveforms, a lot of noise channels and stuff. Um, but one of those FM channels could be used to play back samples. So
Okay.
this week I spent the first part of this week troubleshooting noise, which is a whole nother issue in these consoles because
I
they weren't
bet.
made for audio fidelity, that's for sure.
Right.
But like they the noise was just so nuts. But I finally figured that out. And then I'm like, okay, Genesis, what's the first sound I need? What's the first drum sounds you think of when you think about Genesis?
Usually either
Sonic.
snares or cymbals or toms. Yeah.
That sonic. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what's the sonic snare? I need to recreate that from scratch. So I went through my
Wow.
whole library of drum machines that I've sampled for this project.
Mhm.
Couldn't find it. Couldn't find it at all.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
and then I finally happened upon it. It's a Roland drum machine. Not a very popular one. Not one that people would consider a desirable piece of vintage gear. But there's
Right.
one snare sound on there that is not exactly the sound, but if you pitch it up,
Mhm.
it's exactly the sonic sound.
Oh, wow.
So I was very happy to find that drum machine.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so I have that recreated from scratch because you can't just you some people will just rip them off the carts, which
Right.
is cool as a source of preservation.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to sell this pack, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
sell other people's work.
Right.
Speaking of preservation, there was a project that I found in doing all this research. We all know about Michael Jackson's involvement in the Sonic 3 soundtrack.
Yep. Yep. It's not the most well known, but it has been proven to be correct.
Yeah. And what somebody undertook. I'll find the link at some point and post it. But somebody wanted to find all the original sample source from Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so there's a James Brown sample on there. Did you know that?
What? I did not know that. The king of
yeah.
James Brown himself, the king of, I think it was the king of funk, or
the Godfather of Soul.
Father of Soul. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just find it. Oh yeah. Okay. So there's a bunch of Michael Jackson one. There's the glass breaking from In the Closet.
Yep.
There's the from Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, James Brown.
Okay.
The Go is from a Run DMC tune called Peter Piper.
Oh, okay.
And it might surprise you to know that the one and only Norman Cook, a.k.a. later known as Fatboy Slim, put out these loop CDs called Skip to My Loops. And there's the Come On and the Woo are from that.
Wow. So, Fatboy Slim had
Fatboy Slim has a Sonic connection.
Okay. Of all the things I would learn today, that was one I was not expecting.
Yep. What about
That's
now?
awesome.
Oh my gosh. Soul Hedgehog. That's all I got for today. I've been just working on the same shit. What do you want to chat about tonight, Curb?
Well, first off, I want to give an update for you. First of all,
nice.
Speaking of updates, I remember how I mentioned I had gotten a Steam OLED, Steam Deck OLED. Yes, you had inquired if it could run Yakuza. I happen to have an update on that.
Oh,
yes. So Yakuza 0. I installed it, played around with it, got into some fights and stuff. It runs perfectly. So if you wanted an excuse to buy a Steam Deck for Yakuza games, you have your excuse right here, right now. It runs really well.
I'll never financially recover from this. How much is the Steam Deck? How much is the one you have?
The one I got, I think was like $550, $650. Let me double check.
$650 US?
US, yes.
That's over $1,000 in my money. Oh fuck. I almost bought a RetroTink 4K when they briefly went back on sale over the weekend. I'm like,
I did hear about that actually. Yes,
I am moving. I am about to do my taxes. I am going on a pleasure trip for a weekend next month. This is the absolute worst time for me to buy anything more.
Okay, so it's actually $549. The one model I have is $549 US.
Yeah, you got the mid-level one, right?
The 512
OLED 512, yeah. Yep. So what kind of frame rates we talking about in Yakuza 0?
I think we're getting about 60 frames a second. With the settings that I just literally installed it, played it. It's running great. I'm not having any issues. No skipping, nothing's like doesn't get hot. It's just really optimized wonderfully.
So solid.
Yeah, and even the Steam Deck ratings give it like a check mark. Like it's good to go. It runs well.
Yeah.
I'm not having any issues reading anything on the screen also.
That's great. I checked all those games and they all seem to be verified. Even the new ones.
That's man, Sega's done a really good job with optimization, I'll tell you what.
Sega is doing a really good job at video games these days. I saw that they're releasing a new Puyo Puyo game.
I did not hear this. A new Puyo Puyo
it's an
game.
Apple Arcade exclusive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've been thinking about trying Apple Arcade because I spend a lot of time on my phone on the streetcar these days, traveling to and fro. And I basically that's my Slay the Spire time. But it's slowly kind of losing its appeal after, losing over and over again in Ascension 4, trying to kill the heart. So I might try Apple Arcade. And there's a series of mobile games that I want to try that are based on what's it called? Okay, you know the did you ever play the business manager? Did you ever play Like a Dragon? The turn-based Yakuza?
No, I have not.
Okay, so there's a thing called Business Manager in it, which is my
Okay.
favorite mini game, and I'm like, I've been looking all over for I just want to play that mini game. I don't even want to play the Yakuza game. I just like doing business management.
You like the side quests.
Not just the side quests, like the actual like kind of like strategy kind of business stuff. Because you know, I am not a business person. I don't work in an office, but you know, much as someone who worked in an office might think it would be fun to be a composer, I think it might be fun to run a business. Anyway, all this to say, there's a game that I really want to play that's, I think, on Apple Arcade, and it's a retro game. Not only is it a retro game, it's a retro mobile game, I think.
Okay.
I think it was originally released. Oh, actually, it was originally Windows. But it was only released in Japan. It's called Game Dev Story by Kairosoft. Have you heard of this?
I've never heard of this. When was this originally released? Do you know?
It was originally released in 97 for Windows.
97, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then it got a mobile release in 2015. And basically, like, you're operating a game dev studio, like, in the 90s, I think. And you have to basically, like, come up with a concept for a game and, like, develop it and release it and market it. And then, like, you have to keep releasing games and, like, hopefully they're hits kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm interested in that. So, cool. Yeah, Steam Deck probably it's on, that game is on Steam as well.
Oh, cool.
Probably gotta check that out at some point. Maybe if I make enough money with this this drum thing I'm doing.
Hey, get a little consolation prize. I've also got emulation up and running on the Steam Deck, and it runs really, really well too.
Cool.
There's a program called EmuDeck, which has a SteamOS release. So that installs pretty well for it. It's got all types of customizations you can do. Even has some shaders and filters that you can toggle on or off if you want as well. And it's really nice and really integrated. I'm still scraping data to display for the games that I have that I've legally obtained for the system.
Of course.
Yes, so it's running well, no issues. And one fun thing about EmuDeck with certain emulators, when you stop a game, you have the option to have it turned on where you literally resume right where you left off if you quit.
Very cool.
Which is great. Yes.
Very cool. Well, that's it's good news for retro gamers. I tend to do most of my gaming though, like on a TV. Like,
okay.
I like the idea of like sitting on a couch and playing games. Like, and I don't actually have that for retro too much. Like, I have a Super NT. I never use it. All the retro games I play are at my computer. So like, moving to this new place, I kind of want to get like kind of a little den set up, like a little gaming den.
Nice, a little retro cave, so to speak.
Retro cave, yeah.
So if you had money's no limit and whatnot, what would you have in your retro cave? How would you set it up? Curious.
Well, I like the idea of sort of a modern take on the 80s rec room, 80s like basement rec room.
Okay.
So like wood paneling, but like nice wood paneling.
You
know? And
okay, yeah.
And like shag
I got
carpet.
That picture in my brain. Shag carpet, of course.
Yeah. And like
you gotta get the one that really ties the room together, man.
Well, no, that's like a rug. I'm thinking like wall to wall shag carpet.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and then like super comfy couches that you can just sink into.
Do you include beanbags in that as well as a thing?
Beanbags are not comfortable. They look comfortable until you sit on them, and then they're just not.
They're not for everybody, that's for sure.
You like a
comfy
beanbag?
couch, definitely a must.
You like a beanbag?
I like the occasional beanbag. Yeah, I had one when I was young. I would sit and play games on it all the time.
I just my back does not like beanbag chairs these days. But yeah, like as far as like, getting into the game stuff, I would get, what I would do is I would have a like a main TV, which would be like a 36-inch, like I like a D series JVC.
Okay.
I think they look better than Trinitrons, but maybe a Trinitron. D series TV, and then I'd have one of those, basically a bigger version of what I have here for the stream, which is like I'd have 8 in, 2 out, RGB component cable, sort of switching station.
Okay.
I forget the company that makes them, like DB Electronics or something like that makes these things, and they're awesome. They're like custom made, and they have like a little clear kind of top panel. And
for SCART cables?
Not for SCART cables, they're for component cables. Yeah, I don't mess with SCART.
I think I've seen them out there. I think I saw an article on Retro RGB about some things like that. Yeah, which is awesome.
So I'd have that. I'd have all the consoles ready to go inside of a coffee table. Maybe, you know what I'd have? It'd be a round coffee table, but it's a lazy Susan.
So you can just rotate to the one that you want to play right there. And
underneath the round top surface are all the consoles stacked too high, and you just have to rotate the console to rotate the coffee table to the console you want to play. Okay. Controllers are right there, because I want the console to be right there in case I need to reset. I don't like long cable runs, so I'd have basically the output of that going kind of like routed out of sight to the TV, and then I have a separate setup to stream. And I in addition to that, Curb, it's not, I'm not done yet. I would have a vintage like Pro Logic sound system. And then I'd have my screen set up like exactly as I have it now, but in another corner of the room.
Nice.
Yeah. And finally, I'd have a little DOS gaming section with like a vintage, like top of the line, like Windows 95 PC.
Nice. Nice. Have that all connected to your stream as well.
So beat that. What's yours look like?
Okay, so nice, basement room. Like we have like a big screen TV attached on the wall. Or no, I'm sorry, better yet, projection TV for like modern games.
I like it.
And then that's on a projector screen. And then when I want to
one
play
of those
retro
BenQ
games,
ones. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, the BenQ ones. Yeah.
Like
that was featured on like My Life in Gaming and stuff. Yeah. Something like that. And then I push a button, the screen comes up, and there's a projection TV. The old tube TVs, projection TVs for retro games.
Oh, like
my friend next door growing up had one of these.
Yeah.
You remember those? Like
they're huge.
I don't know if they were DLP. Yeah, they're huge, like a plexiglass like screen, and the image would be projected onto. And then from there, I would have all my hookups for retro games. I would have like a big shelf, like an IKEA Kallax bookshelf,
right?
Where and then I would probably put in some custom shelving where the console sits on a drawer that pulls out. and then you can put your game in cartridge game into. You push it back in. Hit the power, push it back in. It's good to go there. And you can pull it out as quick as you want, because the way I have it, like I have like lots of cable runs and stuff like that. I'm a nerd. I love doing cable runs. So all that will run into for consoles that have RGB capability. It'd have a SCART switcher. And then for consoles that didn't have that capability, I'd either get that capability put in, or I'd run as high quality cable as it could, component, S-video, run all that, and then run a copy of that signal to the TV, and then a copy to a capture card. And that way, anytime I'm playing a retro game, I could stream it if I wanted to. Just have a pod or something that I could set up, like a separate streaming PC, and go from there and process everything.
Nice. Well, it sounds like a dream. But like, decorations are important. Seating is important.
Absolutely. So I would definitely probably have maybe some shag carpeting, maybe a little bit shorter than shag, but definitely some nice plush carpeting, for sure.
Carpet is not such a popular option these days, right? Everyone wants their hardwood floors.
No, I wouldn't do hardware floors. In a room like this, if I did have hardware floors, there would be rugs. Like there would be definitely rugs all over the place.
Yeah.
Because I had rugs growing up, and my family had a nice Persian rug that we actually purchased when we were living in the Middle East. That was $10,000 we paid for it too. And I inherited it from my mother when she passed late last year. But I have all the paperwork, all the authenticity documentation, receipts, and all that. So yeah. Anyway, I'd have rugs. Now, as for the walls, I'd either go with maybe a black wall or maybe a brick wall. I wouldn't go for the wood paneling, not quite my thing. But I would probably go for like a brick or a black wall. That way I can hang just about anything on there. Maybe some awesome lit up posters as well. You remember those ones that are outside of theaters that are lit up? And I'd have maybe one or two of those.
Cool.
Right. From there, also maybe a display case for some equipment, like my handhelds and games and stuff like that. And just have like some IKEA shelving and stuff. And then I know there's 3D printers or files out there where you can display all your games in a really nice way. I'd have all those printed and display them, either just whether they were naked out of the case, or I'd have a shelf where all of the games have their own case, because there are definitely websites out there that sell game cases for all your cartridges. So that's kind of my setup, how I would have it. And then I would have a coffee table with different drawers where you have all your controllers that you want. Whatever one you want, you can just pull out the drawer and there's your controllers. Nice. Plug it in, probably run a cable to a center console where you plug the different controller types into, all custom made. And then you can just plug it into that one, and then it'll be working.
Well, I love it, Curb. I can't wait for you invite me over when you get that going.
Hell yeah, it's got to get rich first.
So I gotta wrap it up pretty soon. Anything else you want to touch on before we call it?
I do have one thing. Definitely, people always talk about how preserving games is always a priority, and I do agree. I think also we should always take care of the consoles themselves. as well, because obviously the plastic on these cases aren't these consoles aren't going to last forever.
Yep.
So I think thankfully the community nowadays and storefronts of nowadays have replacement shells that people can purchase. And if you want to customize your consoles, so there are of course purists out there who want to keep the consoles as original as possible, and things like retrobrighting will definitely help keep the color of those consoles. I have 3 Super Nintendos, all of which have that yellowing plastic. Yeah. So at some point I need to experiment with retrobrighting.
Yeah.
So that's good. And then of course, it's not just the consoles themselves. Sometimes cartridges break down too over time, or or just bad, and they just got to get replacement shells.
CMOS batteries need to be or save batteries rather. They're not CMOS, but they need to be replaced.
Yeah. And for I always implore people, always also clean under the dang hood too, because one of the worst things I've ever had to do was clean a PS3 that was roach infested. Dude, it was so bad. I had a friend who's like, this PS3 is not cooling. It's always running hot. So he asked me to clean it, and I accepted. And opening it up, the smell and just the sight of like 50 or so dead little tiny cockroaches in there was something I'm not going to forget anytime soon. So guys,
can we not talk about this? This is disgusting. You cleaned a roach infested PS3.
They're all dead, and a lot of them are around the power supply. I'm surprised this thing didn't catch on fire.
Dude, no. Right? I would just not be using that console. That console would go on a fucking fire.
It wasn't mine. That's why
I would do the opposite of preserving that one. I just bought a new console.
You did?
For my project, I wanted 2 different Genesis sounds. I wanted like the good Genesis, and then I wanted the shitty Genesis. And I only have the shitty Genesis. I have a Genesis Model 2 1.8 revision, which is notoriously like distorty, kind of harsh, no high end.
But
I love that sound. Like, to me, it's just fat. But I also needed the ideal Genesis sound, which is the classic version 1 Genesis,
right?
It says 16-bit on it. It says high definition graphics up top, high definition 240p graphics.
As high def as the early 90s will ever get.
So this one, I got it today. It has a bit of like residue from like some tape or whatever on it, but other than that, it's like pretty near mint. No scratches.
That's great.
Very
this is the Model 1, basically?
Model 1, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a VA6, so it's a later Model 1, but it sounds as good as the original Model 1s.
And this is the one with the headphone jack and the volume slider on it, right?
Yeah.
The one? Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing the triple bypass mod to this one to get even better audio, but I think I did some tests, and the headphone output on this one is super clean, so I'm just going to use that. The Model 2 one, I have ordered a triple bypass, so I'm going to do that mod, which is probably the most extensive mod that I've done. But yeah, that shell is just it's just rinsed. It's just so bad. But I kind of like it. I like the scars. But I've retrobrighted a few things. Most notably my Amiga. And it was a pain in the ass, because not only was I retrobrighting the shell, I was retrobrighting every single key. And then I lost a couple keys. And when you take apart, it's a mechanical keyboard too. So like,
it
has all the little sort of like springs and stuff that it was such a nightmare to keep track of all that.
I bet, yeah. If you're ever in the mood for a replacement Model 2 Genesis replacement shell, Retro Game Restore is doing pre-orders now on a smoked transparent shell for the Model 2.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so if you're ever in the mood for something, folks at Retro Game Restore, they're an outfit based in Taiwan, but they're taking pre-orders now for it. It's about $106 for the shell,
I
but
paid $50 for the console.
yeah. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, if you want a high quality shell, this looks like to be a good place, and they do other shells as well out there amongst other vendors out there. But yeah, it's
maybe
great.
I don't know. I think about it. I don't really like the look of the transparent shells personally.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind just a nice black, like regular black one, but yeah, this one looks okay. I'm looking at it now. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I like how it says 16-bit Mega Drive 2 on it. I'd like to have one that said Mega Drive 2.
That'd be pretty cool.
Actually, it would be a good showcase for if I do the triple bypass mod.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe I'll consider it. But it's hard to justify something that costs double, triple what I paid for the actual console.
This is true. True. So yeah, it's always something to definitely take into consideration.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all I have here.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap it up because I need to be across town in about half an hour, so I got to get going. But thanks for chatting, Curb. Always great to chat, and always great to do the show. And we'll be back next week with more modern life retro content. And we'll see what we can get up to. And until then, Curb, have a great week. And most importantly, keep on gaming on that new Steam Deck you got.
All right. Well, keep on gaming yourself. And everyone out there, have a great evening. Bye-bye now.
Take care.